Hello, good evening. Welcome to tonight's September Lahaina Homeowners webinar. I'm Stephanie Nakasone Ramsey, Public Information Officer for the Office of Recovery. Before we get into the agenda tonight, just wanted to go over quickly a few of the WebEx functions. I know you probably have heard this before, but just in case you're new here, if you're on a desktop, this is you should be able to see a chat box on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Just to let you know that it is not turned on for attendees to be able to chat. However, from time to time, panelists, presenters may put in information for everyone to see in the chat, whether that be a phone number or an email that may not have been on a slide that they want to have you be aware of. So that's where you'll find those. And there's also a link for the Q&A box. So if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in there. Type your questions through there. Please make sure that it is addressed to all panelists. What we're doing is we're collecting all those questions, putting them in a document that we just, to have all in one place, and then we'll be asking the questions from that document to our panelists during the Q&A session at the end of all the presentations. So again, please send it to all panelists. Do not send it to a specific panelist, or else it won't be asked. So that's how you send in a question. Again, that Q&A box, which you should see those three dots, and be able to open that box up. And you can submit questions anytime. Again, we're collecting them all throughout the meeting, but they're going to be addressed at the end during our Q&A session. So that kind of leads us into our agenda for today. We can switch slides. All right, we have a pretty packed agenda, so I'm going to go over them really quickly. So first we have FEMA here to talk about their microbuild project. The SBA is here to talk about, what they offer as for specific for homeowners. They do give out loans to individuals, and so that they're gonna. We have Barbara here from SBA to talk about that. We also have the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety to go over, options that you have, good advice about how to rebuild more fire resilient. And we have Shinagawa here from the Department of Environmental Management to give a quick update on the wastewater system in Lahaina. And then we have Colette here from our planning department to discuss guidance on SMA exemption process. And then we also have representatives from Hawaiian Electric on guidance on restoring power to your property. And then, of course, like I said before, we'll end with Q&A. Next slide. And this is our panelists available for Q&A. In addition to those, the presenters from the various agencies that I mentioned before, we also have our county infrastructure team here to answer questions. I'm not going to read through all of them again because we're going to try to get through this as quickly, just so we have more time for Q&A, because we have a lot of presentations. But feel free. We have representatives from Four Leaf here for permitting questions, Lieutenant Colonel Colin Jones here from USACE to answer questions that you may have. And again, FEMA represented, SBA represented, Hawaiian Electric represented. So go ahead and ask your questions. Next slide, please. Quick reminder, we have our survey up on mauirecovers.org/Lahaina regarding wanting to get your feedback on homeowners insurance for rebuilds in Lahaina and Kula. If you've been having difficulty, if you haven't had difficulty, we want to hear from you. If you are rebuilding in the burn area, we want to know basically, have you had difficulty basically, and what those issues are, if any, renewing your homeowner's insurance. This survey does close tomorrow, so we've already gotten quite a few responses, so thank you so much if you've already provided your feedback. But for those of you who may not have been able to yet, the survey will be up through tomorrow. Next slide, please. And we wanted to quickly go over some FAQs about water meter reinstallation. We are getting more and more questions about this. Our Deputy Director, Kimo Landgraf, went over this, I believe, in late August, once the unsafe water advisory was lifted. So we're still getting questions, so we want to just reiterate. about how do you get your water meter reinstalled? How do you get your water back to your property? So that's the very first question. How do you request your water meter be reinstalled? You can contact them at those two numbers. This also applies to if you wanted to get your water meter upgraded. You can also call those same numbers. So you can kind of read through that FAQ a little bit. The second FAQ is, does the replacement cost anything? And the answer, short answer, no. As you can read there, no charges for replacement for registered customers. Next slide, please. And another question is always, how long will it take? So the wait time varies, 2 to 6 weeks. And you can call them at those numbers about from the previous slide if you want like an update on where you are in the process. But an important note is that the Department of Water Supply is prioritizing customers who have an approved building permit and are ready to begin construction. That's not to say that if you don't have a building permit that you won't be able to get your water. That's not the case. They're just prioritizing those who have a building permit. So if you do not have one, but you need water for, as it says here, for dust control, for irrigation, for watering plants, you can still call to request your water meter be reinstalled. It's just that it will likely take longer because you'll be those who have the building permits will be prioritized ahead of you. So it might take a little bit longer. Just want to make that very clear. And then, okay, and then the last one we have here is, so the unsafe water advisory was lifted. What do I have to do to get my water service, resume my water service? So once the meter is installed, you called, you got your water meter reinstalled, great. What do you need to do now? You have to call customer service, the same number that you called to get it reinstalled, 270-7730, and then reactivate your account, and you should get your water service back. So those are the steps that you would need to take. If you need a refresher on these, a few more FAQs are also available on myrecovers.org/water. Next slide, please. All right, and then we're going to get into our presentations. And first we have Scott Schaefer from FEMA.
Well, good evening. Program we've got called Second.
Oh, Scott, I think we're losing you. The connection's a little rough, I think. Sorry, it's a little buffering and not
okay.
sure.
Maybe I'll try to stop my video so it'll take up a little less and we'll see if that works.
Yeah, I think it's working a little bit.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I'm going to talk about a new program called our secondary private sites or microsites. Next slide, please. Okay, these microsites are part of our overall direct housing program. There you see on the left, we have 1,290 households in our direct housing population. Direct leases, that's where we lease the units and put the applicant in. We have 1,197 currently. 40 families have already transitioned out of the direct lease to their permanent housing solution, and 53 more families waiting for placement in Kilohana, our group site. On the right-hand side, we talked about the direct lease where we get the apartments or condos. The group site, that's Kilohana, that will have 167 ATTHUs on it. It's a new term for us, alternative transportable temporary housing units. So these temporary housing units, 167 at Kilohana. And then working on private sites, which is where you put it back on the person's site who is the owner of the lot. And then our new thing, the secondary sites or microsites. Next slide, please. So these are what they look like. We have 3 different manufacturers shipping them over from the mainland. All the units are the similar size. The 1 bedrooms are 14 feet wide by 35 feet long, 2 bedrooms 14 feet wide by 55 feet, and the 3 bedrooms 14 feet by 70 feet long. As I mentioned, these will be used at both Kilohana, the primary private sites, and these new secondary sites. Next. All right, the private sites, this is where we put it on the homeowner's site themselves for the unit, the lot that they had. And these are for people who are in the program, haven't achieved their housing plan, and allows the owner to live on their property while rebuilding their primary home. The biggest challenge in this is having sufficient space to meet all the setback requirements from 15 feet in the front, 6 on the sides, 6 in the back, and 10 feet from the original structure, and leaving all those rooms plus room for these fairly large units. So we've done assessments on 59 sites. Right now we're moving forward with 6 of those, and another 8 that we're working closely with the county on to try to and the owners to find a way to get those to fit on their units. Also, these cannot be put in the coastal high hazard zones. And we're working with the county and utilities to make sure we get restoration of the utilities to match up with our work. And then we've been using the Army Corps of Engineers to do our site assessments, and they also do the site preparation with their contractors. And next slide. So secondary private sites or microsites. This is a brand new program for us. It was just approved by FEMA headquarters about 4 weeks ago. And it continues to support the mayor's goal and the governor's goal and our regional administrator's goal of bringing Lahaina residents back to Lahaina. And all our programs lead towards that. So these are people who own residential or secondary residences who do not plan to build within the next 2 to 3 years. Or initially, we had 174 lots in this. The county sent out notices to these owners, and already 45 have contacted FEMA that are interested in the program. So FEMA will lease the vacant land, and of course, it cannot be in a high hazard flood zone, and allow for placement of 2+ of these ATTHUs. Now, what's easier about this is that we don't have to leave room for where the damaged dwelling was or would be rebuilt, because it's not going to be rebuilt for a couple of years. So as long as it's the lot is at least 50 feet wide and 56 feet deep, we can get 2 of these ATTHUs on it. As far as who goes into the units, it's people from the FEMA's direct housing program, and trying to bring people back from other parts of Maui over to the Lahaina area. And as I mentioned, the county already did the outreach and had 274 homeowners. We already heard back from 45 that were interested in it. And if anybody else is interested, the way to contact us is through this email address, FEMA-R9-housing@FEMA.dhs.gov. So we're going to use this to, that was the initial notice people in the burn scar area, but we're also looking at other existing vacant residential lots that might be nearby for additional placement. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. And just for everyone's, so everyone know, these slides will be available on Maui Recovers tomorrow. So you don't feel like you have to rush to write these down if you don't have a pen on hand, or, but I mean, go ahead, take a swipe of your phone and get a screenshot. But just rest assured that these slides will all be available for you to peruse on your own time on tomorrow, along with the replay video, video replay of this live stream as well. Of this webinar, not live stream, webinar. So now we'll move on to Barbara Netta. Sorry if I pronounced your name.
No worries, Nidus.
Nidus. Oh, okay. Barbara Nidus of SBA.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me all. So we, during the disaster, we help out homeowners, renters, businesses, and nonprofits. Next. So SBA is the largest source of funds for privately damaged properties in post-disaster. As I mentioned, we serve renters, homeowners, businesses of all sizes, most private nonprofits. 80% of our loans are typically homeowners and renters, and 20% are businesses. Funds are directly deposited from the U.S. Treasury. That is the reason why it's just low interest. And the program is for the uninsured and underinsured losses. Next, please. So for home loans, we offer up to $500,000 to repair or replace physical damage to your home, and $100,000 for personal property, anything that's inside the home and your primary car. Renters only can receive is the $100,000 for personal property and the primary car. There is an additional funds for it, which is up to 20% of the total damage, which is for mitigation. So this is really to help you out for future as far as disasters, not just fire, wind, basically flooding, any type of disaster to prepare your home. For businesses, as you know, we offer up to $2 million to repair or replace physical damage to real estate, machinery, equipment, inventory that was affected during the disaster, and a working capital loan, which is up to basically 2-in-1, up to $2 million. So either if you are affected with the physical damage, you can get up to $2 million, or if you're affected with up to both, which is up to $2 million for both physical damage as well as economic injury. Next. So the interest rates are fixed. They're up to 15 to 30 years. There are no accrual for 12 months up to your first disbursement. There is, if you choose, you can delay if you're not ready to rebuild, you have up to 24 months, as well as, so basically when I'm saying about this 18-month of your first disbursement, so the first 12 months is 0% interest, no accrual, but the 6 months is with interest, but you do not have to make a payment. For most disaster loans are approved at the low interest rate. So for home loans as low as 2.5%, and for businesses as low as 4%, and for nonprofits as low as 2.37%. Next, please. So this is just an overall of the disaster that we are here with FEMA as far as a presidential, and it's from August 8th through September 30th. And this is what for eligibility for Maui's, for homeowners, renters, nonprofits, and then basically surrounding counties, which is in Oahu, all those areas, as far as islands can get contiguous, which is the economic injury only, which is for businesses and nonprofits. But for Maui County, it's physical damage as well as economic injury is qualified. The grace period has passed for home loans, but people still can apply, homeowners and renters, businesses and nonprofits, for physical damage. They just need to provide an explanation, and they can just go to the centers, as well as call at 1-800-659-2955. But we recommend, since they're all here, to utilize those customer service representatives to help you out. We're here to help you. So, and as far as working capital loans, which is the economic injury, that is till November 9th. Next, please. This is what we have done for Maui. Basically, we have done 6 months to 24 months to help out as far as for withdrawal letters or anything like that, to help you out with the disbursement period. And as well as we waived the financial analysis requirement for Maui loans that are not dispersed the first 12 months. So that's the reason why we have that 12-month deferment. So we're just trying to see what we can do, as well as the COVID EIDL. There was an automatic deferment on your COVID EIDL loan to help you out, to help you recover. Next, please. So this is really the typical requirements that you need, just really a driver's license. The loan at the end of the day is an option. When approved, you're not obligated to accept it. It is to help you out as your backup plan, to help you at least rebuild. But this is the purpose of why we're helping everybody to at least for that process. It is very low interest rate coming from the U.S. Treasury, so it's really beneficial for everybody. But we're here to accommodate everyone. Next, please. This is just a typical collateral. You do need for homeowners is up to $25,000, and then for businesses is up to $25,000 required. But they're not, SBA will not decline a loan for lack of collateral, but requires collateral for that is available. Next, please. That's what I want to mention. A lot of people have been had asked me multiple questions on refinance and relocation. It is on this loan, there is those options. If you do have a previous mortgage, you can get the low interest rate as low as 2.5%. Just notify your case manager when you do apply, or you have already applied, notify if you do want to utilize that option. And there is a lot of, if you don't choose to wait for the rebuilding, or you do have that relocation option, but you have those availability on the loan. Next, please. This is just the typical requirements for when you do go for a business. You just need your basically your financial statements, schedule liabilities, and all that. But you'll get that when you can go to any center to when you can get. They'll explain you all this in the process. Next, please. This is the nonprofits. The same thing. Certain things is for different, little bit different schedule liabilities and tax returns, and that's all at the centers, and also at that 1-800 number that I provided. This is the loan closing and disbursement. So it's basically typically 5 to, if everything is all in order when you apply, they do come to you. If you do apply for the physical damage, they come to your property. They will make a phone call. As far as it could be just an out-of-state number. A lot of people have missed those phone calls, and also they can also email you to at least, see your property and verify what damage has lost. But as far as that, but typically it does take up to 5 days. There is physical damage. I told you up to as far as up to 25 for physical damage and up to 25 for economic injury. Next, please. This is the mitigation part that I was telling you about earlier, which is up to 20% of your loan. So it can be up to, if you're, 500,000, it could be up 520,000, for example. And that was really that I told you for flood mitigation, things that you don't think of to prepare your home. It's all there to guide you. This slide. Next, please. This is what it explains here. When I told you for the additional as far as mitigation. Next, please. Here's are the local locations of the centers. We do have one in all different areas. There is the Business Resource Assessment Center, which is to help out. You can also go there as well as Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And there's that in Waluku. And there's also, we're at the Lahaina Gateway where the county is, as well as FEMA. And then we have in Kihei, we have that 590 Lapoa Parkway, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. And then CNHA at Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 p.m. Next, please. You can all apply at sba.gov/Hawaiian disasters. There's also lending.sba that gets you directly to the application process at lending.sba.gov. And there's also the customer service number at 1-800-659-2955. And you have also the email at disastercustomerservice.sba@sba.gov. Thank you. I think that's it as far as my slides, unless I have another one. Next. Oh, okay, we're good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Barbara. Next, we're going to have Steve Hawks from Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. I just wanted to, give a warning, a trigger warning, if you may. If you, there will be videos in this portion that show fire, show houses burning. Wanted to reassure you that they are all done on in a lab. It's not actual it's not actually someone's home. It's showing the research that the institute has done. So they are show a video of lab experiments. So just rest assured on that. But if you still feel like you don't want to see that and you're not in a mental space to see that, perfectly fine. I would say just minimize your screen or look away, just listen, perfectly fine. And then, at the end of Steve's presentation, he'll have a slide up that doesn't have any of that. And he'll be, there's some good links there as well that you can utilize. But just wanted to give that warning out there, just to prepare yourselves for that. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, and good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Hawks, Senior Director for Wildfire at the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, otherwise known as IBHS. Next slide, please. One more. And so as you look to rebuild, or if you have a home that you're looking to retrofit to bring more wildfire resilience into the property, we look at the property as a coupled approach of trying to reduce the exposure from the things that surround the home that are combustible that could potentially ignite and burn and then allow the fire to get from object to object to the home. And so that would involve like removing objects from the property or relocating objects on the property so that they're further away, so that if they do ignite, they can burn safely and not extend the fire to the house, or replacing combustible fencing like wood fencing that attaches right to the side of the house with a non-combustible alternative. And then the second component of that coupled approach is simultaneously increasing the resilience of the home, the components of the home, and the materials that they're made out of, so that when something ignites nearby the home, that fire cannot extend to the home because of the materials that are used on the home. And so what I'd like to do now, go ahead and to the next slide, is walk you through some of the components of the home and the best practices for building wildfire resilience into each of those components. So one more click. And for the roof, it is undoubtedly the most critical component for wildfire resilience. It is a very large structure that sits high up off the ground that has complex geometry and tends to harbor or accumulate debris on the roof line and in gutters. And wherever you find debris accumulation is where you'll also find embers that travel through the air during a wildfire and tend to find those exact same locations and then ignite that debris. And so the best roofing material is called a Class A roof material. And it's things like asphalt composition shingles, clay roofing tiles, concrete roofing tiles, similar materials like that. And then maintain the roof clear of debris so that there's nothing up there to ignite when embers come from a wildfire. And then to the gutter, as you see the gutter there in the video, that's a vinyl gutter that has detached from the structure. We really want to make sure that those gutters stay in place on the structure because they help protect the fascia board and the material that's underneath the roofing cover, the wood material, from exposure to those embers and debris that can accumulate there and then ignite from embers. So we really want to have metal gutters if you have gutters on your house, and metal downspouts, and put a gutter cover on there to limit the ability of debris to accumulate inside of the gutter and on top of the gutter cover area. Next slide, please. And click one more time, please. And so eaves are a vulnerable component, and this is a research experiment that we did at our research center in South Carolina. And you can see when fire and heat gets up underneath the eave line, when you have an open eave construction like this home did during our experiment, that the fire tends to be and heat tends to get trapped underneath the eaves, and it doesn't have anywhere to go except laterally down the sides of the eave, along the sides of the house. And then because it's up in that space, it has the ability to travel through vents and any openings in the eave line and get inside the attic space and lead to the loss of the house. So for eaves, we really say that they should be enclosed with a non-combustible material so that that heat and fire cannot get up underneath that open eave area and get established and lead to the loss of the house. Click one more time, please. For vents, so vents allow for the air exchange from the inside and outside to eliminate moisture issues inside behind the vent space. But they also allow for embers to travel inside during a wildfire. And you can see during our research here that as embers flow inside the vent, they tend to lazily flow around and don't tend to accumulate in any one location. And so we want to make sure that the embers that do pass through a vent are small enough that they don't have enough heat energy in them to ignite something combustible on the other side. So when you're looking at vents for your house, ensure that those vents are made of material that's corrosion resistant and non-combustible, like metal. and then that the gaps between the mesh is no larger than a 1/8 inch opening. And that will ensure that the embers that pass through don't have enough heat in them to ignite something on the other side. Next slide, please. Okay, perfect. So siding, the biggest vulnerability from siding is that it's combustible, or if it's combustible, that it can ignite, like you see in the video here, and allow the fire to travel uncontrolled vertically on the structure and get up underneath the eave line, and then horizontally on the structure and expose more vulnerable components of the structure than the siding itself. And these other vulnerable components are like vents and the open eave area, windows and doors. So the best course of action here is to have non-combustible siding so that the siding cannot ignite, and then allow for this fire to spread along it and expose those other more vulnerable components. Click one more time, please. In this bottom video is an actual fire taken in Idaho from this year, and you'll see embers landing around the house, igniting small fires. And if you cannot retrofit the house with non-combustible siding, a really good alternative is to take care of that bottom 6 inches, because you see in the video now, even a small fire that's next to the side of the house, if it's left unchecked and the combustible siding extends to the ground, it can ignite that siding and lead to the loss of the structure. So that bottom 6 inches, replace it with a non-combustible material where the wall meets the ground. Is that bottom 6 inches vertically on the wall. Next slide, please. And click one more time. So windows have a couple vulnerabilities. One is the glass, what type of glass it is, and the second is the framing material. So the glass, the best is a dual pane glass window with both panes being tempered glass. And then the second component is the assembly or the framing material. And vinyl, we found during our research that vinyl really tends to heat up and melt and creates gaps. And then you can see in this short video here that the glue strip doesn't hold the window in place any longer and allows the window to completely fall out intact. So really fiberglass, window framing, as well as dual panes with both panes being tempered glass is the best mitigation for windows. Next slide, please. And click one more time. And to round this out is the last, and one of the more critical components is the defensible space, that the area that surrounds the house, and in particular that first 5 feet. And we've been determined from our research and post-fire analysis that this is the most critical area for defensible space. And when you have combustible items, wood mulch, plants, a wood fence, or other combustible things that are within that first 5 feet around the home, it can allow even a small fire that ignites in that area to get to the home and lead to its loss. But if you look at the right-hand side of the video, where we had rock material within that first 5 feet and a non-combustible gate and good materials on that structure, that even the small fire burned up to that 5 foot mark and then burned itself out and was not able to reach the structure. So in that first 5 feet, we really want nothing combustible. So remove all vegetation, no wood mulch, replace the combustible fencing with a non-combustible option, and keep it clear of any debris. And next slide. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Steve. Really helpful information there, I'm sure, for those who are rebuilding. Next slide. Yeah, and now we have Sheena Gaw, Director of the Department of Environmental Management, to give a quick update on the sewer system in Lahaina.
Thank you, Steph. Good evening, everybody. Shane Agawa, Director of Department of Environmental Management. Just tonight, I'm just going to give you a short update on our wastewater status. Next slide. So here, as of yesterday, you can see this is the Kuhua camp area. You can see the before and after. So we have updated the sewer service to active for 22 lots, and these are lots off of the Aki Street and the Kahili Place area. As of date, we have about 2,500 lots that are active and about 1,000 lots that do not have sewer service. For those of you who are between Kuhua Street and Kalena, some of the remaining lots in Waikuli and the lots between Kinui and Shaw that are still inactive. I just want to give you an update that there will be some activity in mid-October. Our contractor will be ready to break ground mid-October. We did have a pre-construction meeting with the contractor yesterday. A lot of these remaining areas that are red because of the severity of the damage. So once our contractor mobilizes, you'll see a quicker pace in us being able to open up the zone from red to green. The updates that you see here, a lot of those are attributed to our in-house crews who have been working tirelessly to get some of the minor repairs that they can do. Obviously, the contractor would have more resources, more manpower, larger equipment than our in-house crews, but they are working hard to get these smaller zones opened up. So thank you for your patience. We will be upping the pace once our contractor is on board. And just to give people an idea of this area, there is a damaged line. I explained before that our sewer service collection system is like the branch of a tree. So right around the area of the corner of Aki Street and Kukua, that's one of the branch lines. Once we get our contractor to repair that line, that will open up a lot of lots, bulk of that to be activated. So yeah, please bear with us, and we thank you for your patience. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Shane. Next slide. All right, and now we have Colette Cardoza from the county's planning department.
Aloha all. My name is Colette Cardoza. I'm a staff planner at the County of Maui Planning Department, and I'm just going to share with you a little bit of special management area information, as well as our newly launched SMXF application, which is our expedited SMA assessment application for Lahaina affected areas. Next slide, please. Just so you know, there are several QR codes on this presentation. So if you would like to get your phones ready, sorry, I failed to mention that prior. And then we'll spend a little more time on each slide so that you have time to take a screenshot. And then of course, this slide, this presentation will be available for everyone tomorrow, as previously stated. So what is the special management area? SMA is a close to shore area that is subject to special controls on development. Hawaii Coastal Zone Management Statute was enacted and codified as HRS 205A in the late 1970s, and SMA and shoreline rules are administered through the county. Next slide, please. Okay, so am I located in the SMA? A general rule of thumb is properties that are makai of the state highway are located within the SMA area. Just so you folks know, lower portion of Waihikuli is also included within the SMA. So an example of this is folks that live on Malo Street. So you may want to plug in your address to this locator to make sure that you are either not within it or within it. Next slide, please. Okay, my parcel is in the SMA. What does that mean for me? If you're located within the SMA, you will be required to apply for an SMA assessment to build and or rebuild your home or condo. And an exemption is a funny word, right? You actually have to apply in order to be deemed exempt. So exemption doesn't mean I'm exempt from applying. You have to apply and we will determine that you're exempt. Single family homes, including those with one ohana, may be able to qualify for an SMA exemption. But again, you must apply in order to be exempt. And then shoreline owners, there's another process for you. Next slide, please. Okay, so the SMXF Expedited Special Management Area Assessment Review. Currently, if you have your debris removal package completed and you have your plans, then you can apply right now with 4Leaf on the MAPS website. On the MAPS main page, you're going to click apply and search for SMXF. The SMXF Expedited Special Management Area Assessment is the application you should apply for. Next slide, please. This is the homepage for our MAPS permitting system. At the moment, of course, conveniently, it's down for some maintenance. But here's where you will create an account. And there's also instructional videos on how to do that. Next slide, please. So this is the QR code for the actual expedited application. So once you are logged in, you would just click apply and you can type in SMXF into the application assistant. Thank you. Who is eligible for the SMXF application process? This process is for residential parcels that are located within the Lahaina disaster affected area. Residential parcels that are proposing a single family home and an ohana. Parcels located entirely outside of the erosion hazard line. Parcels located entirely outside of County Historic District 1 or 2. If you're located within the National Historic Landmark District, that's okay, you can still apply. And parcels that do not require a flood development permit. Within this application, there will be tools to help you find and determine. So the last 3 bullet points on this slide, there's actually links in the application that you'll be able to go to the maps and look at this information and determine if it's a yes or no. Next slide, please. Some notes. Single family homes and all other proposed structures must be collectively limited to no more than 7,500 square feet in order to qualify for an exemption. So that means if you have a home, a garage, and an ohana, cumulatively, it cannot be more than 7,500 square feet. An environmental assessment is required for single family homes and structures greater than 3,500 square feet within the National Historic Landmark District. So what that means is each structure cannot be more than 3,500 square feet, main home, ohana, with the 7,500 square feet SMA exemption category as your ceiling. Next slide, please. If your property does not fit these criteria, you can still apply for an SMA assessment through the planning department. So if these criteria, if your property does not fit in these criteria, it's likely you're not eligible for an exemption. However, again, you still apply through the planning department and the department will determine your path forward. Next slide. What if I already applied for an SMX? If you've already applied through the SMX application process with the planning department and you qualify for the SMXF process that was previously discussed, your application will be routed to 4Leaf. So 4Leaf will now be your contact. Next slide, please. These are 2 QR codes to our new SMA and shoreline rules that were adopted on August 25th. So if you really want to dive deep into the rules and what all the details are, here are the QR codes. Next slide, please. And what if I am a shoreline property owner? if you go to this page, this is on Maui Recovers. There's some information here regarding coastal hazards. There's a video that you can watch, and then there's also a sign up. And you'll be able to sign up for a one-on-one meeting with a county planner who will discuss required SMA applications. And if you've already signed up for a one-on-one, just please know we're working on the list, and we will get to you as soon as possible. Thank you, and we'll be available for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Colette. We can move on to the next slide. We have our last presentation from Hawaiian Electric, Mikey Burke and Emily Smith. Oh, sorry, Mikey, I think you might be muted.
Thank you. Aloha kako. Mahalo to the Office of Recovery for inviting us to join tonight's meeting with you all. I'm Mikey Burke, the West Side Community Liaison for Hawaiian Electric, and presenting with me tonight from our electric team is going to be Emily Smith, our Principal Engineer. Next slide, please. So Hawaiian Electric continues to work with federal, state, and county agencies. Oh, wait, one more back. Thank you. So we continue to work with federal, state, and county agencies, along with community stakeholders in the ongoing recovery of West Maui. In addition, our employees are also here to help you through the process of restoring power to your individual properties. Since last August, we've restored power to more than 11,000 customers, including critical infrastructure in Lahaina. And as part of that restoration process, new steel and wood poles were installed to complete one of the main transmission lines that services West Maui. But now that residential properties have been 100% cleared and the commercial properties are about 50% completed, we're seeing more and more service inquiries from individual homeowners and businesses looking to rebuild or even place temporary dwellings on their Lahaina parcels. So tonight we're going to focus on the process to restore electric service to your property through either a temp service or a permanent service request. Next slide. Thanks. First and foremost, as part of restoring power to your properties, safety for our customers, the community, and our workforce continue to be our top priority. As we address your service requests, the infrastructure that will be installed will be all brand new equipment. This equipment's rated for regulated safety standards under the National Electrical Safety Code. And the poles being installed are also regulated under the same safety standards and rated for high wind gusts. Other infrastructure improvements include fire-resistant and Thermamesh to protect against termites on the poles, fire safety device installations such as weather stations to track localized weather conditions, and artificial intelligence cameras to detect and analyze smoke across various landscapes. We also continue to work closely with the county on the reinstallation of the streetlights. So if you have a request for a specific streetlight near your property, please go to the county's website, seeclickfix.com, seeclickfix.com. Next slide, please. While the immediate restoration work is ongoing, we are committed to long-term energy planning for the West Side through efforts like the Lahaina Energy Partnership, through Lahaina Strong, and the long-term recovery plan with the County Planning Department. And Hawaiian Electric is looking forward to working together with the Lahaina community and government officials on long-term plans for Lahaina, which will include the potential to strategically underground electric lines and other hardening efforts in the future. As part of our wildfire safety strategy, we have applied and have been awarded federal grant funding to start strategically hardening, which includes undergrounding some electrical infrastructure in identified evacuation zones. We continue to look for other federal funding as well. Now I'm going to turn it over for Emily to talk about the temporary and permanent service requests. Next slide.
Thanks, Mikey. And I'd like to echo Mikey in thanking you folks for the opportunity to share with you this evening, a majority of which I understand are returning customers, Hawaiian Electric. Right off the bat, I'd like to define returning customer. We here at Hawaiian Electric consider anyone who had a service account and was receiving power from us in August 2023 and lost their property, business building, or home to the fire to be a returning customer. This presentation is aimed at helping you folks, our returning customers, to get power back at your properties. A second point I'd like to make is to inform you that as customer service requests come in, we are rebuilding our infrastructure back the way it was prior to August 2023. In other words, if your neighborhood had overhead infrastructure in August 2023, then once we get your service request, we will rebuild overhead. The main reason for our rebuilding overhead is to allow us to restore power in a timely manner. I also know there's a lot of talk about undergrounding infrastructure, and I would like to acknowledge, as Mikey mentioned earlier, that this is a complex discussion that is not solely in Hawaiian Electric's hands. We are looking forward to working on long-term plans for West Maui with all customers, community members, stakeholders, and government officials that would include the potential to strategically underground electric lines and other hardening in the future. As this long-term planning continues, in the near term, we are rebuilding our system infrastructure back to its original state. This allows us to restore service today to meet the needs of returning customers, like yourselves, when requesting power to your properties. The trigger for us to start to rebuild system infrastructure moving forward is customer service requests. There have been some questions on when system infrastructure will be rebuilt. And the answer is that moving forward, Hawaiian Electric will rebuild system infrastructure to support customer service requests. So step number 1 in moving forward to rebuild is to submit your service request. The following slides will cover customer service requests in more detail. Next slide, please. Okay, so step 1 to getting your power back to your property is to submit a service request. Until we get a service request, we are blind to your electrical needs. Once we get the service request, we will be aware of your power requirement. And if needed, we could start to rebuild system infrastructure to your property to support your service request. A service request is submitted online via our CIT tool, and we highly recommend that you hire a licensed electrical contractor to submit the online service request for you. So why do we recommend that a service request be submitted by an electrical contractor? Well, 1, the CIT tool requires that you first create an account before you create a service request. And all electrical contractors on Maui Island who have worked with us before have an account with us. And 2, the service request requires technical and county permitting information that a homeowner might not know. So for a more seamless experience, we highly recommend using a licensed electrical contractor to assist you with submitting a service request. On this slide, we provided you the UR and QR code for the service request. This information will also be available for you post-presentation on the Maui Recovers website. Next slide, please. There are 3 different types of service requests that we anticipate you folks as returning customers might be submitting as you begin your rebuild. You will either submit a temporary service request, a permanent service request, or you might submit a temporary construction and permanent service request simultaneously. Please work with your licensed electrical contractor to determine which service request suits your needs best. In the following slides, we will discuss these 3 different types of service requests in more detail. Next slide, please. First, we have temporary service requests. There are 2 types of temporary service requests, temp dwelling and temp construction. You would apply for a temp dwelling service if you require power for a mobile home, tiny home, or RV that you are living in temporarily. General guideline is 5 years or less. You would apply for a temp construction service if you require power for constructing a permanent ohana or your new permanent main house. For both of these service requests, it's your responsibility to get the required permit from the county. Please work with your licensed electrical contractor and the County of Maui to get these permits. Also, both of these temp service requests are subject to standard temp service application fees. Application fees range and start around $1,400. Next slide, please. Next, we have permanent service requests, and we anticipate fewer of these types of requests at the beginning of the rebuild. Permanent service requests can either be submitted at the same time as your temp construction service request, or it can be submitted after your temp construction service request. Please work with your licensed electrical contractor to determine when the best time to submit the permanent service request is for you. You could submit a permanent service request if you have a prefab home or a mobile home that you plan to live in permanently. You might also submit a permanent service request at the time of your temp construction service request if you know what your permanent build will be. The permanent service request is at no cost for like restoration, but any modification of the electrical service might trigger additional costs. Some examples of electrical service modifications that you might request are upgrading or changing your service, converting overhead to underground, or moving your metering point. Next slide, please. That's all we had for this evening's webinar. Again, we'd like to extend a warm mahalo to the county and yourselves for allowing us to come and share a little of what we've been working on, our plan to move forward with infrastructure rebuild, and what your role is in getting power back to your properties. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily and Mikey. Next slide. I think we'll move on to Q&A now. I wanted to start off with a few of our pre-submitted questions. As always, we had a form up on myrecovers.org where people were able to submit their questions before the webinar. So thank you very much if you submitted questions. Off the bat, we did get a few questions relating to the Puamana area. We did check with the planning department, and they wanted to let you know that the planning department will have a follow-up meeting with owners to answer questions about the area, as circumstances for this project are unique and require a lot more explanation. So just for your information, they've seen the questions, and then there will be a meeting, a follow-up meeting with the residents of Puamana. But first off, wanted to kind of go again. Some of these are pre-selected. The pre-submitted questions. The first one will be for Kate, our director of the planning department. The question is, we have reviewed the EHL map. We also know that there is a 40-foot setback. Does the red line include the 40-foot setback? Also has the thickness of the red and blue line. And so the Mauka edge is correct. Do we need to compensate for the thickness of the lines on the maps?
Mahalo for this question. Good to hear all of everyone's presentations. Great job. So just for everyone's benefit, the EHL is the erosion hazard line, and I'm going to call on Colette to go into the details of this question. She's ready to answer. Colette, are you there?
I'm sorry, I was talking, was on mute.
That's
Hi.
all right.
Okay, so on the island of Maui shoreline setback viewer, the erosion hazard line, or the red line, is your shoreline setback. And the EHL considers historical data as well as 3.2 feet level of 3.2 feet of sea level rise. So it's a culmination. So I hope that answers your question. So with that said, like in some places, sure, you won't have very much erosion. It could be less than 40 feet. And then in some cases, the erosion hazard line goes in 300 feet. So it's all based on the data that was mapped by the University of Hawaii Climate Resilience Collaborative. Yeah, hope that answers your question.
And just to add to that too, this is really why we set up the one-on-one meetings. It's so that folks have an opportunity to take a look at the line on the map and talk with a planner about how it applies to their property. So we strongly encourage you to reach out and set up those one-on-one meetings, and recognizing, like Paulette said, that we are getting to everyone as fast as we can. And I just found out another way that we might be able to get to people faster today. So hopefully we'll be able to have those meetings more quickly. Thanks so much for your patience, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Colette and Colette and Kate. The next one, this would be for chemo. Let's see. I think this actually probably was addressed during our FAQs at the beginning of the presentations, but this resident notes that it's miserable now with no trees. Can we turn on the water to allow tree replanting and completed Army Corps cleared lots before the rebuild?
Well, it depends. So if your lot that has a water service is not on, you need to apply to get the meter reinstalled, and then the water can be put back and you can water a tree if it's on your lot. but we kind of try and focus on the permitted people ready for rebuild and temporary, and then we'll get the ones for irrigation and dust control.
All right, thank you, Kimo. Yeah, we kind of went over that with the FAQs at the beginning. You can, yes, request a water meter even if you're not in the rebuild, but it will likely take a little bit longer. And this was a couple of questions we got were actually was not really homeowner related, but it's something that Kate, as the head of our community planning RSF, can speak to. There were a couple questions on, are there any real plans for Moku'ula restoration? And someone was inquiring about the status of a car-free commercial front street.
Mahalo for this question. And I know folks are really excited because, of course, we talked about this during the long-term recovery neighborhood workshops. And right now we're busily putting the finishing touches. A lot of the folks on this call are working on the finishing touches for the long-term recovery plan. That draft will be out in October. And within that, you're going to see evidence of Front Street and Moku'ula and how we plan to address these issues going forward. But just to be very clear, like I said during the neighborhood workshops, these are the long-term recovery plan is a collection of projects and programs, and we put them in a plan so then we can achieve the funding that we need to do those projects and programs. So while answers to these questions are not going to be in the long-term recovery plan, the path forward for these items will be in the long-term recovery plan. So you'll start to see how things are shaping up, and we expect we will have the open house in October, and we're looking forward to having you there so you can see all the work that we've done, all the work that you've done to tell us how you wanted your community to be rebuilt. So thank you so much for that opportunity, Sept.
Awesome, thank you so much, Kate. This next question is possibly for Forleaf or maybe Jordan. Our homeowners insurance was not renewed after the fire. Once we start to rebuild, my understanding is that the contractor will have their own insurance for themselves as well as licensed suppliers. The question is, do we need to have our homeowners insurance during this rebuild phase?
I'm gonna have Jordan. We don't have anything to do with homeowners insurance or anything like that. I don't know if Jordan knows.
Yeah, this is Jordan with Public Works. Yeah, so there's nothing as far as getting a permit that the county will require as far as showing you for property owners to show proof of insurance for rebuilding their homes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jordan. And I just wanted to the person who did ask that question, I hope you did fill out that survey that I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, the survey that is open till tomorrow, because the county, the state, they want to hear from homeowners that are, specifically, especially those who are having trouble with getting homeowner insurance or had their home not able to renew. So if you didn't fill that out yet, please go ahead and do so. If you have, thank you so much for that, for submitting your experience. Next, let me see here. We had a few questions. We had a couple of questions. This would be for the planning department regarding the church, Grace Baptist Church on Fleming Road. Is one of the questions was basically saying that the church is near our property. We recently discovered that the zoning had changed for that property, changed from R3 to commercial for the purpose of making able so the church could build a church of any size they choose. So my concern first is why weren't the residents of Fleming notified or have a say on this? Second question, how does it affect our property on Fleming Road? Do we fall in the same zoning now? Do we, let's see, I'm sure zoning can't be changed for one parcel, or maybe it can be. And then another, sorry, Kate, to keep piling on, another question had similar inquiries, but also wanted to know, does it affect their property taxes or anything like that? So I don't know if you can address that.
Sure. So this was a council initiated zoning amendment and it went through the process and we, so just to clarify, it went from residential to public, quasi-public. So it didn't go to commercial. I'm not sure where that misinformation came out, but it went from residential to public, quasi-public, and it was just for that one parcel. And that was to allow that church to rebuild. So that's really what it's for. You know, as a rule, it kind of feels strange that churches shouldn't be allowed in residential neighborhoods, and this is just an issue with our zoning code. So this was the way to remedy that so that they could rebuild. And so of course we went from residential to public, quasi-public. I hope that answers that question. It will not affect your properties in any way. It is only that parcel that was rezoned. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. This next question was, I want to rebuild with fire retardant materials. And is there any grants to help us with the cost of this? Talking to my other colleagues in the Office of Recovery today, there is discussion with other agencies about possible help with those costs, but it's too in the early stages that we can't really discuss that right now. However, we actually wanted to ask Steve at IBHS if he has any knows of any programs or anything that maybe even the county or the state can look into that would help residents that want to, or homeowners that want to build more fire resilient, I suppose.
Yeah, so there's potentially some funding available through FEMA for that. There's programs called BRIC, Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, that the community of Lahaina or the county of Maui could apply for.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there's also hazard mitigation grant funding that's available that can be used for retrofitting homes and defensible space work.
I just thought we ask. I'm sure we have a lot of people on this, so if they haven't heard of that, now they will. Thank you so much.
You bet.
And the next is an insurance-related question. Erin Wade from our Department of Management has said that she can answer this question. So the question is, basically there's some confusion over whether or not a homeowner will be billed for the cleanup, the USACE cleanup. The entire question in its entirety was, agents and claims specialists appear to be uneducated when it comes to USACE and Maui County claims to debris removal monies. Different answers from different agencies that I've spoken to. Latest from my insurance specialist is that I cannot use any of my debris removal monies until after USACE has sent them a bill. How many years is that supposed to take? Also, no insurance person has any idea that the county will ask for monies that are left over. I had they did speak to Erin earlier this year, but obviously we're getting closer now that it's a little bit different now. Not different, I'm sorry. It's now that we're in a situation now where the debris is cleared. This question is coming up more. Can county, USACE, and insurance company give homeowners some clarification? Is it at least possible for the county and USACE to give guidance to the insurance companies? Oh.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, and Jordan might want to chime in too here. So, early on, we said even prior to the cleanup starting for residential properties, that any debris removal funds allocated in the insurance policy would be requested after the cleanup is done. And this is just the portion of the insurance policy that relates to debris removal. And that is because of the Stafford Act. It doesn't allow for duplication of benefits of both the cleanup being done for you and then receiving the funds for the cleanup from the insurance. It was told to us that you could utilize the funds in your debris removal for additional cleanup as in if there was things left after Army Corps of Engineers completed the cleanup, you could utilize those funds to perform additional cleanup if that was needed, as long as you're saving the receipts for that and making sure your insurance provider is aware so that when that billing comes at the end, you've got documentation for that. We are now 100% complete with the cleanup for residential properties. So the compilation of amounts that will be billed is beginning. And then I don't know if Jordan wants to chime in and talk about the process for requesting insurance proceeds, but that is kind of behind the scenes getting set up here at the county. That helps.
All right, I don't know if Jordan wants to chime in on that. So we can move on. This is one of our, let's see, this is one of our, another pre-submitted question. This one, I believe, can be addressed by Lieutenant Colonel Jones from USACE. The question is, FEMA left a huge hole, I think they mean USACE, left a huge hole when they completed my property. Can they return additional rock to bring my property back to its original elevation?
Yeah, this is Lieutenant Colonel Jones. Thank you for the question. I direct you to our call center so I can get the specific address, unless you have the specific address. I can say and just reiterate what I shared with the community last night is that when we removed the soil from and the debris from the personal property or the residential sites, we didn't take any more soil than we had to. So some of that may have been due to soil conditions and the site specific conditions. So I'd be happy to take that address and talk with the team, but we do not, we as part of the debris removal process, we're not providing fill for the residential sites or the commercial sites.
All right. We do have contact info for everyone who submitted a question, so we'll hopefully be able to get their contact info to you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll get into a few of the questions from today. This is for SBA, for Barbara. Is the $500,000 loan a construction loan or is it a mortgage loan? How long is the loan for? 5,
Okay.
10 years or more?
Yeah, so it's up to 30 years is the maximum. It is really to help you rebuild your home, repair, replace your physical damage to your home that was affected by the disaster. It is up to $500,000 for the home damage. And that's really construction, like you said, to rebuild whatever you had. And the $100,000 is for personal property, anything that's inside the home and your primary car for a homeowner. For a renter, they only can receive this at the $100,000, up to $100,000. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. I'll go on to this may be for Kate, or maybe there is a sewage question here that it involves sewage as well. Shane, Director Agawa had to step away to go to another late meeting tonight, so he will be able to answer this question afterwards, and we'll be posting any questions that we got that we can answer. But we were unable to answer tonight. We will be posting them on the Maui Recover site alongside this video recording and the slides as well. So we will be able to ask him this question as well, but this involves water, involves some planning questions as well. So this pertains to Waiala Church. It says Waiala Church owns a half-acre downtown that has 5 grandfathered dwellings and 5 water meters. It is zoned residential. What can we build on the property? Can we put temp homes on it? Will we get all 5 water meters back? Again, they asked about the sewage, when will it be restored? They gave a little, they say that the property is on Luakini across from the ex-Wharf Cinema Center. I don't know if Kate and Kimo, Kate, if you want to address that first, or.
It's a big question. So Mahalo for that question. I think I know I'm familiar with this area. I've spent many hours in Waiala Church, the community hall there. So I need to look into this property more deeply. So I think we'll have to save the answer for this question to online. But also too, I would encourage the folks from Waiala Church to reach out to the planning department. I'll put our email address in the chat so you can reach out to us and schedule a meeting, because we've been meeting with some of these larger properties and entities to talk about what you can do. So would be happy to have a similar conversation with you all. So I'll drop my our planning email in the chat to make sure that it gets to all the right people. But thank you for that question.
All right, thank you. Kimo, here's the water meter question.
So it's the same thing. So we need to have more information on the property. So if you give us the address and the contact number, then we can look more into the property and see. You can email at water.supply@mauicounty.gov.
All right, great.
And I can put it in the chat if you want.
Yes, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah. And again, we also have contact info from the resident who posted that question to us. So well, I think these are live questions. I'm so sorry. So it'd be better, yeah, to go ahead and post that in there, and then they can contact planning department and water supply directly.
Hey, this is Wendy. Did you want me to answer the temporary housing question?
Oh, sure, Wendy.
Yeah, so I'm in charge of the temporary housing permitting. So Waiala Church should reach out to me if they were interested in providing any temporary housing, temporary structures of any kind on that property. I'm very familiar with the property, so I will put my email in the chat, and they should just provide me a general summary of what they're interested in doing. And then I will, once I receive it, coordinate with all the affected agencies, water, wastewater, planning, fire, that requires approval for a temporary structure permit. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It's a question for FEMA, or Scott from FEMA. Pretty actually simple question. Where is the FEMA office located on Maui?
Thank you. So FEMA has individual assistance staff working at Lahaina Gateway in the county-led resource center. And then we have our work offices both in down in Kihei and up here in West Maui.
All right, thank you. And another FEMA question concerning the direct housing program. The question is, there was a rumor that they may be extending past February 2025. Is that true? Or is FEMA focused on getting residents into the new program mentioned today?
A couple yeses. Yes, we have received a request to extend the direct housing program, and last I heard, that is under review. But we are also working to get applicants into the microsite program, the primary site, and to Kilohana. So we're working to get as many people in as we can to get them back to the Lahaina area, and the request for an extension to direct housing is still pending.
All right. We also have a few questions that reference the EHL, the viewer. Yeah, so I know Kate, did you want to address those questions?
Yeah, so I saw a lot of questions about the EHL. So just to be clear, the erosion hazard line is your setback. That said, this is why it's so important that you schedule one-on-ones with us, is because how that's expressed, depending on your property, is different. So I very much, I cannot answer individual questions, but what I can say is that when you come in to meet with us, we can talk to you about the erosion hazard line, how it affects your property, but it is the erosion, it is the setback. So, but like I said, if you are 100% within the erosion hazard line, there are options for you. So I just want you to very much go to the link that I posted, or in the QR code that's in the presentation that was presented tonight, so that we can talk with you one-on-one about how that line affects your property. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's see, this one is for Hawaiian Electric. Do we need do we need to contact Miko about moving electrical pole in the property because of the easement?
Hi, this is Emily. Oh, sorry. Yeah, any pole or anything that you would want to move, you should contact us, and we can send a planner out there and look at it and see what the situation is.
Right. Oh, we also have a request. Carla, I'm not sure if you can go back to the very, I'm so sorry, very to the beginning of near the beginning of the slide. Someone is requesting, oh, you know what? I will just type it out. There's actually no QR code. So they wanted a link for the survey regarding insurance that was shared earlier. I'm going to go ahead and type that in into the chat. It is mauirecovers.org/Lahaina. That's our Ola Lahaina page on Maui Recovers, and that's where you'll find the link to the survey there. I had forgotten that didn't have a QR code, so you can just go there. Again, it closes tomorrow, so please go ahead and get it done by tomorrow. I believe it'll be taken off at midnight. So let's see. Another question here. This one is for Kate. My property is in the SMA district. At the time of the fire, I had an active building permit. I owner occupied the main home and had built 2 ADUs. Will I be allowed to fast track my SMA permit?
Mahalo for that question. I need to look at, I know that you're sick of me saying this, but I need to look into the individual case, your particular case in order to answer that question. So do reach out to us at planning or reach out to the planner that's assigned to your case, because if you have a permit in the process, then you already have a planner assigned. So reach out to that planner and they can answer that question for you. Mahalo.
Yeah, and just to Kate had posted earlier the planning email, planning@mauicounty.gov. So that would also be a contact. Let's see, we have another question. I thought I saw one. Oh, another for SBA. Can you please clarify if a business could be eligible for up to 2 million EIDL and up to 2 million for physical losses for a potential of up to 4 million combined?
Now, thank you for the question. It is up to 2 million for both physical and idle.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification on that. All right. Let's see. All right. I think a lot of these other questions are for our planning department. Let's see if it says, regarding the SMA, are we required to have a permit and plans before we can apply?
Great question. So you don't need to have a permit. This is part of the permitting process. So what you do need to have is plans. We need to know how you plan to rebuild, what you're planning to do in order to do an assessment. So you'll have to have your plans all ready to go. Like Colette said, you also need your package from the Army Corps that says you're complete and all of that. So that is all listed in the application. When you go to it, you'll be able to see what you need to have in order to do that. And in order to get a building permit in the SMA, you are going to need to go through this assessment process. So this is really one of your first steps. So thanks for that question.
All right, thank you, Kate. This is about the EHL red line, but they're asking for a little more clarity. Can you build right up to the EHL red line, or do you have to set back further from it?
Okay, so I'm going to say this again and again and again. It really depends on your individual parcel. So I need you to contact us. So for all the questions about EHL, I just really encourage you to go and make an appointment with us to talk story, and we'll be able to tell you how the erosion hazard line applies to your property. But thanks for asking. I know it's complicated. We're shifting the way that we do things, but I promise you, once we get through this really awkward moment, it'll get a lot easier. I appreciate you.
All right. All right, Kate, and this is a more community planning side. Just asking about this is part of the community rebuild. Is Lahaina Harbor a part of the community rebuild? So I assume long-term recovery plan.
Sure. So this is definitely a long-term recovery plan question and great question. So the harbor is the responsibility of the state. And fortunately for this long-term recovery plan, the state and the county have worked closely together. And we are aware that this is a project that the state has on their minds. And you'll see evidence of how it'll show up in the long-term recovery plan. I can't remember exactly where it fits in the long-term recovery plan, but it certainly is being discussed with the state, and it's part of their priorities for long-term recovery. Thanks.
All right. Oh, I think there was actually a couple. Let's see, did I skip over a few of these from the pre-submitted? Just making sure I didn't miss any. Again, I think we see some more questions that were related to Puamana. And again, I kind of went over that at the beginning that, there will be a follow-up meeting with owners in the Puamana area specifically to answer those questions. They can't answer, those answers won't be able to be discussed tonight because there's the circumstances are very unique and require a lot more explanation. So I apologize if you're not getting your answer tonight, but the planning department is in the works of trying to set up that meeting with Puamana residents. We just have a question, one more for SBA. Can I still apply for a home rebuild loan up to $500,000, or am I past the deadline?
Yes, you can still apply. I just need to provide an explanation to why you were not able to during that grace period.
All right, so they should go see you
Go to any center and they will help you out with the process.
Okay, great.
Yep.
All right. So I think we're right about time right now. It's we're almost at 7 o'clock. So I want to thank everyone again for attending tonight's webinar, and our presenters and our panelists for participating tonight. A lot of great information given out. Again, a video recording of this will be posted on Maui Recovers in our past community meetings section. As well as the entire slide deck from tonight will also be up there as well. And then again, we're going to effort to get the Q&A portion kind of captured on that site as well, just so you don't have to go back and listen to everything again. And then also answering some of the questions that weren't answered during our Q&A session. We did get a few questions that we'll have to go back to our departments with and try to get answers for those questions as well. Let's see here. Any other reminders I need to make? I think that was the main reminders. So again, I will effort to get the video recording up and then the slide deck up tomorrow. So if you need to rewatch or look through the slide deck again, those will be available. Again, myrecovers.org, that's where you'll find it. So again, thank you everyone for attending, and have a good night. Bye.